Welcome back, one and all, to the Damage Report. Today, Thursday, we right a wrong, not a total wrong. Monday was awesome on the show, but it didn't have Francesca, did it? I think we all acknowledge it didn't have Francesca. And do you think we're gonna let a week go by without getting her incisive commentary? Hell no. And so here she is, Francesca Fiorentini, host of the Bitchuation Room. How's it going?
Incisive. It's going okay. It's been quite a week, but yes, I had to take Monday off, and I'm glad to be here with you. It's funny, I usually do a segment on my show called Orange Man Bad, where I put all of the bad news about Trump, and I was so pressed for time I couldn't even fit it. So that's why I'm glad I'm here on the Damage Report, because stenographers of fascism, as we are.
Hey, I know you're pitching that in a positive way. I stand by this rundown, not just for my tastes, but I think also for your tastes.
No, John
I think you're
is
gonna
so
love
sweet.
it, okay?
The stories are good, and John's always like, "Will these stories do, madam?" And I'm like, "Yes."
I think they're good. Okay, I generally like the show. I come across criticism from time to time that I feel is kind of deeply unfair of what I do. But anyway, especially today, I think good rundown, good stuff, some productive stuff, some stuff that might give us a little bit of hope. I don't know generally how you're feeling about politics. Obviously, this week has sucked in a variety of ways that we might address in the social break. But I do think there's some cause for hope. And there's some good things in the world, not only things that give me hope about the upcoming Democratic primary, but also, and I understand most people probably aren't aware of this, so maybe I'm breaking some news here, but while my daughter can't yet make a quacking noise, when I ask her what sound a duck makes, she does this with her arms.
Shut up.
And I kind of think that's the best thing that's ever happened on Earth. So
cute.
We got that going for us. She doesn't make the noise, but
you know what? It's physical comedy. That's, I mean, as a comic, comedy. I'm like, it's what she's primed for. It's less cerebral. I know. It's much more the big act outs, the big wings.
She's got a good sense of humor. I think I want you to hang out with her more to push her even more in that direction, but she's got a good sense of humor. And by that, I mean, she thinks everything I say and do is funny. So
I mean, so do we. We all do that. We're
that's what I've gotten historically, yeah. Anyway, well, my self-indulgent parent talk aside, we do have a lot to talk about, everybody. So send in your comments, your tweets, your super chats. I will read many of them. And I say that both in that, as I've talked about at length on the show recently, I can't read all of them live. And also there might be some that, I might address in a bit of a roundabout way. But anyway, we're gonna get to as many as we can. And a whole lot to talk about. We're also gonna be doing members content. Okay, Francesca has an op-ed that just came out wherein she encourages Joe Biden to become something of a serial criminal in a productive way. So we're gonna be addressing that, and that will go out to the members later on today. But with that said, why don't we jump into our first story? More and more elected progressives are coming out and speaking in defense of those who are experiencing rage or grief or a variety of different things in reaction to the CEO assassin story. And that is giving me hope. Okay, coming out of this obviously terrible thing, that maybe something positive can develop. Something positive, but also more importantly, something real and something big and consequential to right some of the systemic wrongs that our country has labored under for longer than we've been alive. And I want to talk to you about some of what they've been saying. So you might have heard Bernie Sanders earlier this week say that the murder was outrageous and unacceptable, but he also indicated that negative feelings towards healthcare CEOs or the companies in general are entirely justified. And he said, I think what the outpouring of anger at the healthcare industry tells us is that millions of people understand that healthcare is a human right and that you cannot have people in this insurance industry rejecting needed healthcare for people while they make billions of dollars in profit. And of course, he's gonna get attacked for that, and he is. But it isn't just him. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did an interview, I think, with Business Insider, where she said, of course, we don't want to see the chaos that vigilantism presents. We also don't want to see the extreme suffering that millions of Americans confront when your life changes overnight from a horrific diagnosis and people are led to just some of the worst, not just health events, but the worst financial events of their and their families' lives. I think for people who are surprised, it's a wake-up call for how much of this exists in our society. And I'm not surprised to hear either of them saying that. I am a little bit surprised that Elizabeth Warren is coming out swinging as much as she is, because she's been super quiet in general for, I don't know, a year, 2 years, I think. That's my view. But she said the visceral response from people across this country who feel cheated, ripped off, and threatened by the vile practices of their insurance companies should be a warning to everyone in the healthcare system. Violence is never the answer, but people can be pushed only so far. This is a warning that if you push people hard enough, they lose faith in the ability of their government to make change, lose faith in the ability of the people who are providing the healthcare to make change, and start to take matters into their own hands in ways that will ultimately be a threat to everyone. And she received special criticism for that. And so she put out a clarifying comment saying violence is never the answer, period. I should have been much clearer that there is never a justification for murder. And she doesn't need me to respond to that, but I will just briefly say, no, you were fine. You made that super clear. The people who pretend to not understand that you were against the murder, they're being obviously bad faith. And the media is filled with that, and other politicians are filled with that. Stop apologizing to these people, because they don't want your apology. They will never actually be appeased. Your comments are right, and AOC's comments are right, and Bernie's comments are right, and Maxwell Frost is making some great comments. And so, we can certainly read into some of this, Francesca, that maybe this is some posturing for primaries and all of that, but I'm not even against that. So what do you make of what the progressives are saying?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that it means that these people are also seeking, I mean, I don't know about Bernie Sanders, but Elizabeth Warren and AOC are thinking of themselves for higher office. And they know that, universal health care and fixing this broken ass greedy system that only benefits, CEOs is not just good policy, but it's good politics. And it's widely supported by both Democrats, Republicans, independents, and that the majority of American people are angry. I mean, we really do in this country play Russian roulette every single day and hope that it's not gonna be ourselves or our husbands or wives or our children or our parents who get the diagnosis, right? And yet we are all aging. We're going to get a diagnosis of one thing or the other, right? And this is why we need to expand Medicare, not likely privatize it like Donald Trump's second administration will do. So I think it's good. And you know what, John? It's like, this has been what now, a week and a half, 2 weeks since the actual murder. If they had come out with this immediately, there would have been even more backlash, but they're reading the room and they're seeing that there aren't people in leadership who are speaking to these grievances of, yes, the thousands of people who lose their lives every single month, who lose their homes, who lose their savings, who lose their dignity because they're getting these claims rejected. And it's another reason, lastly on this, that it's one thing to say, okay, you can't reject someone from buying healthcare because of a pre-existing condition. Yeah. All right, let's rein in the evil in that one aspect. But there was never a stipulation clearly in the ACA to say, well, you can't reject claims willy-nilly. There have to be some universal standards for claims. And we know this, right? Like, for example, this is minor, but like dental healthcare, right? You guys know dental healthcare is largely a racket, but it's important, right? You get cleanings, you get a cavity, whatever it is. But when you buy dental healthcare, there is a 3-month to sometimes even 6-month window before you can actually use it for anything important, because they're trying to lock you in so that you don't say, oh shoot, I need a crown, let me buy the healthcare. It's like, so you don't scam the private dental healthcare insurance industry. Yeah. And it's like, what is the point, right? And so again, like all of these little ways that, again, if you're healthy or you've got health insurance through your employer, you're like, well, I'm okay, I think I'm okay. And yet inevitably it's gonna come for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I try to have empathy for that. Obviously, I don't need dental care. Sugar doesn't touch these teeth. And in terms of the roulette thing, like I keep it tight. I think we all know that. So, but for other people, yeah, I can imagine that would be scary and create some anxiety. But anyway, yeah. Look, I'm glad that they're all like, what the right would want to come out of this is just these damn people, not even like, he's not even a poor guy, he's a rich guy, but like these poor people taking matter in their own hands. It's not right vigilantism isn't right unless you're killing another poor person. If you're acting up on the train, you're off with their head. If you're like, if you're a black teenager and you've got Skittles or whatever, obviously you should be shot dead in the streets. And then the person who killed you, they're a hero. We all know that. If you go to a protest to kill protesters and you do that, we will give you a career in media. But you're not supposed to shoot rich people, you idiots. That's what they would want the message to be coming out of this. I want a strong message sent to the politicians and to the media. No, the ACA stemmed some of the suffering. It took the most fundamentally unjust system we had and made it tolerable for the most part for some people for some time. But it was always supposed to be the thing that was built on. And the only thing that's happened in regard to the ACA ever since then is chipping away and attempting to take the legs out from under it. Now, we weren't done. Okay, and maybe that message got lost. Maybe it was co-opted by some other Democrats. But I think we need a round two. I think we need at the very least a round two. And I think that 2028 would be a great time to litigate that. Do the groundwork in 2026, which is why if these politicians, maybe not, again, Bernie Sanders, because he's 1,000 years old or whatever, he's older than Smaug, although I would love for him to run regardless. But if AOC and Elizabeth Warren, if they're posturing that I'm gonna run and I'm gonna focus on getting single payer healthcare, good. That's only 1,000 times better than whatever backroom planning Pete Buttigieg is doing or Gavin Newsom or a lot of these others. And look, if they wanna sign on to that too, if they can read the room and see how much anger there is about the status quo, how much desire there is to change things. And we see these polls showing like 62% of the country thinks the government should guarantee healthcare, which is like 20 points higher than it was a decade ago. Then sure, they can sign on too. I'm still gonna go with the people that have been more authentic about that for a longer period of time. But that's what I wanna see come out of this.
No, and look, I think I can think of a million different small reforms that would help the ACA be more affordable as someone who buys their healthcare on the marketplace. But again, these small reforms are not saving lives tomorrow. They just really aren't. And if you ask me, the private healthcare insurance industry has completely lost any credibility and ability to provide healthcare to Americans. They must be forced to forfeit the right to provide this service because they've proven they cannot. That is where I stand. But what I think Elizabeth Warren's statement is the best before the apology, right? People can only be pushed so far. And if they see that those in government aren't doing F all to change it, they think that, well, they have to just take matters into their own hands, right? And if it sparks this conversation, if we're talking about it, I mean, it's like, you've got Michael Moore coming out with Sicko, 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
However long ago it was that he came out with this groundbreaking documentary that showed all the people with health insurance, and it was sort of the precursor to the ACA. Well, you could really do the same exact documentary now, even with the ACA. So yeah. We are at a breaking point. I mean, really it is socialism or barbarism if you ask me. Either we make drastic changes or we're going to get techno-fascism bankrolled by crypto fascism or like crazy vigilantism.
Yeah, well, so I wanna be productive. I'm the new John. I'm both productive and way more petty and spiteful, and I think both of those are good improvements. So Michael Moore, I think it's time for sickos. And I'd like to collaborate. You, Francesca, you've done documentary work about the healthcare system.
Yes.
It's going to be an updated sicko, but the sickos in this case are the CEOs of all these companies. And we're gonna profile them, we're gonna talk about their crimes, and we're also gonna tell the stories of people who are still suffering and dying under the current status quo. So I think sickos needs to come out. We start working on it today. We probably hit festivals late next year, maybe the year after, but I think that's pretty awesome. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Okay. With that said, let's turn to something else that could be productive. Obviously not gonna pass, but we're gonna talk about it regardless. Elizabeth Warren has a new bill aimed at shifting corporation sort of focus and mission away from maximizing shareholder value, which is at the end of the day, literally the only thing they care about, and towards giving more support to their actual workers and other stakeholders. This is the Accountable Capitalism Act, and it proposes a series of reforms to increase corporate responsibility, strengthen the voices of workers and others in corporate decisions, and shift companies away from their focus on stockholders. And what does a focus on shareholders or stockholders actually mean? mean? Well, if you go back to like the 1980s, the largest corporations in the US, according to a data sheet provided by Warren's office, dedicated less than half of their profits to shareholders. The rest was reinvested into the company, including into the workers. But over the past decade, more and more profits have gone to shareholders rather than workers or long-term investments. During the same period, worker productivity has risen, but there have been only modest increases to real wages for the median worker, while income and wealth inequality have soared, as we all know, surging past the Gilded Age. And so how does this work in practice? Well, we have an example, and the example is the health insurance industry. So here's some great data being provided by The Lever. Since the passage of the ACA, just the top health insurers have spent $120 billion on stock buybacks. Stock buybacks don't do anything for workers. They don't do anything for your customers either, but they're great if you hold stock in the company, as every one of their executives and board members do. It's a way for them to take all of this money, and rather than paying back the workers that have actually made the companies what they are, or lowering prices, anything like that, instead they just give themselves massive paychecks, constant massive paychecks, which they desperately need because they're only fabulously wealthy to begin with. And so that's not the way this has to be. That's not even the way that it was a few decades ago, as Warren notes. And so they want to switch that up and both give workers more of a voice. And one of the ways they would do that is corporate boards would have to have at least 40% selected by employees. There would be restrictions on stock sales, both after receiving the stock from the company and both in relation to stock buybacks. And so obviously, look, they're not going to pass this. The Democrats are out of power. And even if they were in power, I think most of them would be absolutely disgusted by this because they hate capitalism having any guardrails. But I think it's a great conversation starter. Francesca, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good vision, right? We all need a vision board, and I think this is important. And I mean, there have been grassroots efforts to get workers on the boards of the corporations that they are creating value for. And that, I think, is basic. And so that is a fight we should all be in for. And I think a lot of unions have discussed this. They've put forward those plans. And so as we look to General Strike 2028, or 2026, I'm always forgetting, 2028, that would be something to, put again on our little vision board of how we can rein this all in. I think, the biggest problem to me is still, and it's so tiresome to have to keep saying this, but it's just money in politics. The fact that our politicians can't even, they'll be like, okay, we're gonna chide corporations for doing stock buybacks, which is disgusting, should be illegal, absolutely does nothing for consumers, workers. It literally just jukes your own stock value and makes stockholders richer. But what about Congress selling stocks, owning and trading stocks? You know what I'm saying? They can't even do that. They can't even get rid of that. They can't even, agree. And this is, I think, where we need to be pushing is really in the Democratic Party in primaries, stop taking corporate cash. If we do this, we can actually model how we want to move forward. We can regain the trust of the American people that see no difference when it comes to taking corporate cash between Republicans and Democrats. So then we can work to something like reining in corporations. But so long as they're the ones, filling their coffers and pulling the strings, this can only go so far.
Well, and look, the progressives in the Congressional Progressive Caucus are also trying to focus on that. Frost, I think, is sort of leading the effort to try to divest them from all that corporate money. But again, that's a titanic battle because they like having that money. Okay, well, I want to move on to, we've talked sort of generally about the war over this story, what should be taken from it. Now I want to focus on a case study, and it starts with Bill Burr. Listen to this.
You know what's annoying me about this kid who killed this CEO is none of these news programs are talking about the incredible lack of empathy from the general public about this because of how these insurance companies treat people when they are at their most vulnerable, after we've all given them our money every month and now we finally need you and all you do is deny us. And then these and all of these things are taking the pictures of their CEOs off their websites. I got to be honest with you, okay? I love that CEOs are afraid right now. You should be. By and large, you're all a bunch of selfish, greedy pieces of shit. And a lot of you are mass murderers You just don't pull the trigger. That's why it looks clean.
And look, if you want to disagree with him, feel free to disagree and point out how he's wrong, point out how it's not justified to want that. Ben Shapiro is just going to skip to baseless moralizing when he responds. Bill Burr said yesterday, "I love that effing CEOs are effing afraid right now. This is a morally sick sentiment, and he's not alone." So I point this out for a couple of reasons. So first of all, we're being preached to about moral sickness from a guy who has attached his coattails or to the coattails of the MAGA movement. Like he's fine with all of that. The supposed religious values he has and all of that. He's cavorting around with, even just specifically to his identity, known anti-Semites and all of that. Like spare me the moral sickness concern, Ben Shapiro. But also the reason I pointed out is I think he knows what shaky ground he's on this topic. As we previously talked about in the show, I don't think his audience agrees with him in this. I think they agree with Bill Burr. And I think this is one of the inflection points where Ben Shapiro's job is to take the orders and the money from the wealthiest people in the country and then delude the rubes into willingly surrendering control over this government and their economic future to those people. And he's done a good job of it. He scams his viewers very successfully. That's why they gave him this career. They made him from nothing. They made him with millions of dollars of advertisements and all that. But the issue here is he doesn't have control over people when it comes to this. Because you can convince people to ignore a lot of their own degradation, but when you've been through this system, when you've been screwed over by it, when you've seen a family member screwed over by it, hopefully for a lot of people, and it seems to be the case, you care more about that than what this screeching little harpy yells at you from his podcast a few hours every day. And so he sees the comments, he sees the messages, he sees the groundswell of rage, and in the same way that Marjorie Greene is terrified by it, he's terrified by it, and he knows it's his job to try to tamp it down. I don't think he has the ability. What do you think, Francesca?
Right, and to our earlier segment, I think it's great then that Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Elizabeth Warren are picking up sort of the slack where so many leaders on the right are too, chicken, to say openly that, yeah, this is tapping into a real wrong in American society that must be fixed. And it's not just the healthcare industry, although that is one of the number one issues. I mean, years ago, it was always the number one issue. In 2016, it was the number one issue. What did Trump do to fix the ACA as he promised? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Everyone was just deluded into a world of supplements and exercise. And so long as you can, it's pathetic, like truly pathetic. It's really sad, I'm sorry, but we're in this world of, well, okay, so I'm deathly afraid of getting ill. I know that I won't be able to afford it should I get ill. So the only thing I can control is what I eat, how much I eat, going to the gym, making sure I'm which are all good things. You should do those things. You should be healthy. But it is honestly, in a lot of people's minds, this weird stopgap because they're in the low key kind of desperately afraid. And then the onus is put all on the individual because we're a world of rugged individuals, even though our labor is making these CEOs richer and richer and richer. So I'm saying it's not just healthcare, it's so many other industries that we're doing this. And of course, when Bill Burr makes his slight comments about he loves to dunk on white women, he's got some very non-PC takes on lesbians, because he's a comic. Ben Shapiro will be like, hey, it's great, it's like freedom of speech, you know what I mean? Why was everyone getting so sensitive? Oh, why are you getting sensitive now? When he's saying something morally reprehensible, that he's glad CEOs are afraid? What about unhoused people who are afraid every effing day? What about people who are on the verge of losing their home who are afraid every single day? What about all of us who literally live in fear every single day? And this is the thing, in this country, if you try to use a counterfeit $20 bill at a convenience store, you will be strangled to death by the police, and that will be seen, that's fine. You're probably on drugs anyway, right?
Ben Shapiro will cheer that.
You could cheer that, but if you do a bunch of stock buybacks, if you consistently deny people healthcare even though they pay for it every effing month, and you lead to the deaths of, thousands of people, no, congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, in general, this is true of the right. It's also true of Ben Shapiro. All of these vigilantes are heroes. They were all justified in killing people because the people they killed were poor. And it doesn't matter. Poor people can be afraid. They should be afraid. His job is to make them afraid of stuff that's not real. He tries to create a bubble that they will live the rest of their life in of fear, because when they're afraid, they're pliable. Okay, but rich people aren't supposed to be afraid. Well-connected people, CEOs aren't supposed to be afraid. That's a line too far for the delicate sensibilities of Ben Shapiro. Anyway, we need to take our first break. Lots more to get to after this. Okay, everybody, let's jump into some of your comments. By the way, I saw David Morris said on YouTube, John, is there a pitchfork emoji? There will be. Hopefully today, I'm gonna get a pitchfork emoji up and we're gonna have some fun. Just because I support farmers. I wanna be very clear. I support farmers and I think that hay needs to be moved sometimes.
MAGA.
And so we're gonna honor them in that particular way. Christ Elijah says, I wonder why John isn't wearing tees anymore. Well, I periodically switch from wearing tees and then inevitably go back. I'm trying to just, it's a new era, a darker era. I'm trying to, I don't know, up it a little bit visually, I suppose. I don't know. We might mess with the shot and stuff too. I'm just messing with stuff.
Mess with the shot.
Well, our set. We'll see. Anyway, B166ER gifted 20 memberships. Thank you for that. Love the support. Jay Marlined became a member. Thank you. Trinidad Barnes became a member on YouTube. Thank you so much. Remember, members content. We're going to be talking about Francesca's call for Joe Biden to begin breaking the law. That should be a lot of fun. It'll go out to the members. And I also want to mention, because I've seen some comments about this both today and yesterday about the video that Mondale put out. And so look, I've worked with Mondale for, I don't know exactly how long, but it's got to be, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, something like that. Mondale's great, and Mondale is just doing what he thinks is right. He disagrees with Cenk and Anna on a number of things, maybe some policy things, maybe some strategic things. I've made very clear, both in general, but also especially at the desk with Cenk, about things that I disagree with him about. And you're gonna go based off of that. It sucks to not, have him on the show or on the network, because I love working with him. I love his perspective. I think it's an important perspective. I hope that at some point he feels comfortable working with us again. And if that's the case, I hope that we can make that happen. I want us all to work together, because I think the stakes are incredibly high, but people have to do what they think is right. Everybody's going to. That's true for the people on camera. That's true for the people watching the show. You have to follow your values. I've always advocated for people to do that. I'm certainly not going to change that right now. And I think we can and should disagree with each other when it's warranted. And the only thing that I would hope is that ideally we can keep talking. And again, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. I don't agree with everything with Francesca, but we still work together. I think she's a reprehensible human. I still work with her though. I'm kidding, but anyway, it's a big loss. He's a great guy. He's never given me any reason to think that he's anything other than a person who fundamentally operates based on his values and in good faith. And we might disagree.
Unless he gets really big on YouTube, I'm sure others would agree. And unless he gets really big, we'll probably all, tear him down. I think I
will not participate in that. But
no,
yes.
And neither will I. I mean, there's 57 seconds to say that I think it is really telling that some of the contributors that have left are Black contributors, trans contributors, and that is really unfortunate. And I think there's a reason for that, as we are being told that so-called identitarian concerns of racial justice, of trans rights, should not be at the forefront of a progressive movement, when in fact they should. And in fact, there is room enough, and there's always been room throughout every struggle, civil rights, LGBTQ rights struggles, the feminist movement. They've all been told to shut up and put their concerns second. And history showed that they were right and the others were not. So yeah, it's a huge loss.
Look, the break's about to come. I'll say just a little bit more on the other side of this. Okay, we need to get to our stories in a sec, but I will say, and look, I TYT has always been a place where we can air these disagreements and have these disagreements. I mean, you and I have had disagreements with Cenk on the main show. We probably will tomorrow. I've disagreed with Cenk about some of the rhetoric around populism. I think that, maybe we cede way too much ground to the right in what I see as a fundamentally dishonest thing. I know Cenk has been very clear that he wants to continue to have these disagreements, including publicly on the show. And, hopefully more speech is the solution. I hope. I don't think I've ever hidden what I believe about any of these topics. I think that I've always been super clear. I think I focus on a lot of these topics that I value, including the topics that you talk about, Francesca, and I intend to continue to do so. And with that said, we're gonna move into our next topic, which, what do you know, deals with corruption. It's no secret that the US government has been pay to play, pay to win for a very long time. What might be a bit of a surprise is that there's room to make it even worse, and Donald Trump has a plan to do just that. I apologize both to the audience and to Francesca specifically that we learn about this from the form of a Truth Social post, but that's how the president communicates what he's gonna do. So he said, any person or company investing $1 billion or more in the United States of America will receive fully expedited approvals and permits, including, but in no way limited to, all environmental approvals. Get ready to rock. Okay, so if you have environmental concerns about what these companies could do, shut the hell up about it. They're spending big bucks. Who cares what happens to the water or to the air? Who cares if it devastates a community? Who cares if a community gets sick? And who cares if they're Republicans? They've got more money than you. Shut the hell up about it. Oh, also, small business owners, go F yourself. You don't have enough money to matter. We're not gonna listen to you. You have to spend $1 billion. And that, if that was true, that would be bad enough. Let's be very clear. We know how this works. These companies promise all sorts of investments to get tax incentives and to set up, and then it doesn't happen. They don't actually invest the money, but hey, they got the environmental approvals. And so you may not get the jobs that were promised, but you will get the polluted rivers and streams that were necessary for them to do business. And so look, rightfully, a lot of environmental groups are slamming this proposal. It would be illegal. Like there's an actual law, the National Environmental Policy Act, that requires investigation of the likely environmental impacts of a lot of these business decisions and all that. I guess he's promising to either ignore the law with an executive order, or maybe the Senate and the House will try to override it, in which case that's a fight we're gonna have to have. But that's what he's promising, Francesca, more environmental damage just so that the rich can get what they want.
It is just kind of fitting, just in a fossil fuel analogy way, that every time we hit rock bottom, you just keep digging and you get to like shale gas awfulness of the Trump administration, and the just like keep going. Trump will get you there. Just to bleed out there on Truth Social saying America is open for business and we will absolutely skirt every single regulation so that you can start a company here. Now, the question I have is, what if that company is from China? Like, why? There are a lot of Chinese companies and like Korean companies and others like that are super interested in and have started manufacturing companies in this country. So does he want to like do a little asterisk and clarify? Because I'm assuming he doesn't mean foreign companies from countries that he doesn't like. Russia, probably fine. They're a little strapped at the moment, but yeah, man, this is, and what do you mean? It's like environmental is one thing, which feels, even though it's not, it feels abstract to people. It is polluting our air and water, and yet RFK Jr. won't be able to rein that in at all. But the more important thing is about labor standards. Like, this is the other portion of it, is ensuring that you will be able to do any new manufacturing plants or any new projects, and you will not have to hire union workers. And that will be, that's fine. You contrast that. I know we're all sour on Biden, me included, but you can contrast that with, some stipulations in the Inflation Reduction Act, which were about union jobs to build some of these green energy initiatives and new infrastructure programs. It's a pretty big difference. But I guess the Sean O'Briens of the world don't want to hear that.
I just want to throw out one additional thing because there's all this stuff coming out over the last day, which we'll do tomorrow with Brett, of Trump immediately backtracking on so many of his promises, like grocery prices. That's a tough one. I don't know if those are going to actually go down. I love all that backtracking, but I also think we have to give credit where credit is due. It looks like he is going to make good on some of his promises. So he did effectively promise that he would scrap basically all climate laws and regulations if the oil companies gave him enough money, and apparently he is still planning to do that. In fact, energy industry lawyers and lobbyists were interviewed by Politico. They're crafting executive orders and policy paperwork because they think, well, the ones that Trump would come up with, they're just not deferential enough. And we know the dude doesn't like to write anyway. So we're just gonna write it for him. We hand it over and he signs it. He doesn't care anyway. Yep. And we've already bought his ass. And so it looks like that's gonna go through. But I do want to reset to talk about this because it could be that some of these ambitious, greedy politicians' own self-interest could save us from a little bit of what he plans to do. We're about to see a great test of Donald Trump's ability to get his Republican toadies in the Senate and the House to line up and give him what he wants. And here's the case study. He wants to kill EV subsidies. So you know the stuff that's supposed to make it more affordable for you and your family to buy an electric car. They're obviously very expensive. And until the prices go down, that's what subsidies are for, to make it more affordable. Now, some of his most loyal followers don't mind the killing of that. Even the ones you think might actually have a problem with it. Elon Musk is a great example of that. You might think, well, he wouldn't want the EV subsidies to be killed. I mean, that makes Teslas more expensive. No, but he's done three-dimensional chess. Yeah, it'll make his cars more expensive, but he's got an advantage on the other companies that he's ahead of the curve. He can afford to weather the increased price more than them. He doesn't care if a bunch of his followers can't afford Teslas. Screw them, they're peasants. He doesn't care about them. He cares that GM will be hurt more in the interim and that their ability to catch up might be killed by this. So he's in lockstep. But will the senators be? See, as it turns out that a lot of the facilities that are going to be building EV batteries and cars and benefiting from the new consumer spending that these subsidies will provide are located in Republican congressional districts. You can see a map right here that Bloomberg put together. And there's actually a lot of them, and that's not actually by coincidence. So Republicans represent congressional districts with 19 of 25 major automaker batteries and EV assembly plants, either already in operation or under construction. Some of these are absolutely massive. GOP Representative Richard Hudson represents a district in North Carolina where Toyota spent $14 billion on a battery plant. They're going to create 5,000 jobs there. How do you think it's going to look for Richard Hudson if they stop the subsidies, demand dries up, the plant gets pulled, and 5,000 jobs disappear because Donald Trump don't like electric vehicles? And so you take Richard Hudson and now you go over all those different districts, the senators and the representatives. They might have a problem with voting to strip those subsidies away if it ends up severely imperiling their chances of getting reelected. What do you think, Francesca?
Yeah, I mean, here's what I think is going to happen. I don't think they're going to rescind these subsidies. I think that just like Trump took credit for Obama's outgoing strong economy, he's going to just take credit for the Inflation Reduction Act that no Republican voted for. Was it no Republican or like, yeah, no Republican. Even though, and again, this is Biden's old pitch, man. Just Republicans going to have an epiphany, man. No, none of that is going to happen. What Trump is going to do is he's going to, mark my words, market the Inflation Reduction Act in a way that no Democrat could have ever done. Talk about the jobs, talk about the battery plants, talk about how much he did. BS. It was Democrats, it was Biden, but it doesn't matter because if you don't know how to talk about the policy that you did, if you don't know how to campaign on it, if you don't know how to bluntly state what you did for people to understand, then nobody will. And also, if you keep on doing these programs which are like, well, it's gonna, insulin prices are gonna drop in 2027, just during the second Trump administration. Like, stop back timing these things and delaying their implementation. And so the last thing I was gonna say is, back to the union stuff, UAW has also pledged, I think it was like $40 million to invest in unionizing the battery plants of some of the major car companies. And so that would be in these same red states that have a lot of them right to work laws, a lot of them are super big union busters. So there is a fight coming, and it's coming from the workers, and it's coming in red states, and I can't wait.
Yeah, and I hope in this, I hope people, like, this could be a great moment for more people, including more independents and conservatives, to realize who Elon Musk is. Like, he is getting in there. He's not, like, general corruption is gonna be at an all-time high, but he is willing to destroy the auto industry so that he can have a little bit more money for his company. And he's not really even hiding it. So I think it could be a clarifying moment.
Well, one, like, you know this, you have an EV, right? Is that correct?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so you don't have a Tesla EV, but can you imagine if John had a Tesla? That'd be hilarious. But no, one of the things is that there are Tesla only charging stations. Now, I believe it was the Biden administration, but there were starting to be regulations that had to be like, look, these need to be charging stations available to all EVs. It can't just be Tesla. You think that any of that's gonna go forward now? Hell no. That is a deliberate market capture that is very like very monopolistic to say, yeah, no, these charging stations only belong to Tesla. You gotta buy a Tesla if you wanna charge, if you wanna like go long distance and whatnot.
Well, and in particular, what we're talking about here is charging stations that have received government money to be set up. Obviously, if Tesla just wanted to build their own, they could keep that, but they want that money. Now they need to make it available to those with different plugs. And so that is supposed to happen. Okay, we do have to take our last break. We'll come back with more after this. Okay, yes, on the other side of this, we gotta get to all three of these topics. They're very important, but let's jump into some comments. Kyle Cushing says in a super chat, has anyone done a comparison of civilian deaths due to the defense industry versus health insurance? One estimate was 400,000 direct civilian deaths post 9/11 in wars. We lose 40K plus due to uninsured, underinsured per year, which would be 920,000. I'm sure people have done that. I'm not familiar with the numbers, but yeah, both seem way too high. I'll say that. I think that's my bold stance. Long Beach Dragon says, are you effing kidding me that Time named Trump Person of the Year? Well,
they're trying to remain relevant.
Didn't they name Hitler Person of the Year? I mean, I don't think it necessarily means you're great.
Oh, sure.
It's impressive that you were able to do all the things you did and become president again.
Trump would be very happy with that company, let's be real.
Yeah. Okay. By the way, jokes aside about Tesla or whatever, I don't down on anyone who has a Tesla, unless you bought it because you like Elon Musk, then I will down on you. But if you bought it because they are comparatively, in some cases, cheap, then I think that's perfectly fine.
Well, what about a Cybertruck?
That's not comparatively cheap, so no. Anyway, mine, for like full disclosure or whatever, is a Chevy. I chose it because it was inexpensive and I don't have a bunch of money to spend on a car.
I like that car.
Anyway, I like mine too. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Gary Cooper says, letting lobbyists write regulations has been a Republican practice for a long time, but Trumpers are the type to actually brag about it. Yes, that has been a thing, and not just for the Trump administration, but for state legislatures, ALEC and all that have been doing that for a long time. Okay, let's see. Wolfie's Meows Dragon has been here for 41 months on Twitch and says, Francesca on a Thursday in a world of topsy-turvy, this is a most pleasant surprise. It is. Octo Squiddy says, Bill Burr is a comedian. I thought all comedy was fair game. Why are you getting so sensitive, Shapiro? It was just a joke. Yeah, look, that's why I try to tell people for years, everything they say about cancel culture and political correctness, these are not principles. These aren't even misplaced principles. They are opportunistic one-way protections for their divisive, toxic speech. That's all it is and all it ever was. They're not stoic, they're not tougher. They want to be free to mock people they don't like, and they do not want to be mocked in turn. That's all it is. Anyway. Pagan Dragon, been here for 41 months, says, love John and Fran, so glad they're on my anniversary. I'm glad that we're here as well. Okay, did we save, where's the comment? I wanted to mention Michael Schor is going to be filling in, I think, next week for Mark Thompson on his radio show, which is a rare opportunity. You should definitely follow him. I also wanted to read this comment from Beta Man, who says, yo, just saw a guy with a Bitchuation Room t-shirt at the VA.
What?
How awesome is that? How awesome is that?
Love.
Okay, let's see. B166ER says in a super chat, John, you, Brett, Long Beach Dragon, me, Morton's, my treat, say yes. I will talk to Brett. I don't have a lot of dinners out these days with the baby and everything. As much as I appreciate a good steak, but perhaps we can talk at some point. But thank you for the offer. It is very kind of you. Maxwell sent in a super chat, much appreciated. Thank you. Benjamin Morrill gifted a membership. Benjamin, you go above and beyond every day, and I really appreciate it. Lou Amistoy became a member. Thank you to all the new members. I do appreciate the support, especially when we're in this time when, a lot of people on our side of the aisle don't want to pay attention to the news in general. I do appreciate it. We got more after this. Okay, everybody, buckle up as we jump into these last stories. It was like a day or two ago that we gave Joe Manchin credit for pushing for SCOTUS term limits. Well, we're going to dial all that credit back because as one of his final acts in the Senate, he decided to do an epic crossover event with Kyrsten Sinema and screw the Democrats and screw the Biden administration and screw you if you're a worker as well. Because Sinema showed up for her legit first Senate vote since the Thanksgiving holiday. She's taking weeks off. She just doesn't care. She's not gonna work. Specifically so she could vote no on a procedural vote to kill Lauren McFerrin's nomination. That's Joe Biden's proposed extension for his nominee for the National Labor Relations Board. Because she voted no, it's okay. With Manchin absent in the Senate, the vote would be tied 49-49, which would mean the Vice President Kamala Harris would be able to break the tie. So Manchin races across town. No, we gotta screw over the Democrats. And it becomes a 50-49 vote, which means that she is now denied, which means the Democrats no longer control that labor board, which they would have controlled until 2026, even into the Trump administration. So no, now they will not. Now Trump will get his way, and that board that's supposed to protect workers will be screwing you over. That is what Sinema and Manchin decided to do as one of their final acts in elected office. And Francesca, there was no way with you on the show today we weren't gonna talk about this. What do you make of it?
I mean, this is amazing. And it also goes to the broader failure of legitimacy and failure of the Democratic Party to even keep their own in line and run these centrist, ridiculous Democrats that haven't been vetted properly, that are just so easily bought off and have no accountability to their awful, terrible votes, and can again take hand over fist corporate cash. John Fetterman's coming up on their coattails there, being like, "Oh, I'll be the Manchin and Sinema of the future Senate." But again, it's like, this is why I think Democratic voters, this is why I think the people are like, nah, man, because you can't even keep your own in line, and you are now it's not just these two people, it is the system. It is the system in which they're working in. And Fetterman is a perfect example of how if you take out Manchin and Sinema, you're gonna replace them with other folks. And people like Rahm Emanuel, who now wants to be DNC chair, were pivotal in making sure that Democrats ran these centrist candidates time and time again. I mean, Kyrsten Sinema has her own awful little arc, right? But nah, man, it's disgusting, it's terrifying. And I hope that for the rest of her life, people follow Kyrsten Sinema into the bathroom.
We're not calling for any vigilante stuff, Ben Shapiro. Don't freak out or whatever. But yeah, look, I would make a joke about servers as a person who served food for a very long time, about people spitting in her food or whatever. Yes. But they already do. Let's be very clear about that. If Joe Manchin is just consuming a couple parts per million of spit, I think he's getting off easy, is what I will say. Spit, in manner of speaking. Anyway, no, they're terrible. And also, because this is the new John Iadarola, who wears jackets and is very petty, they should not be allowed to leave office as Democrats or whatever. They should be thrown out of the party. I'm not saying necessarily physically thrown out of the building or whatever, but they should have that stripped from them. They should not be able to look back and, hey, I used to be a Democrat, now I'm working across the aisle. No, you had your party affiliation stripped because of your constant, willful, enthusiastic betrayal of your constituents, betrayal of the country, betrayal of the party. How dare you still be able to have that letter next to your name? It's barely worth anything anyway, and it's worth far less so long as you're affiliated with it. Anyway, let's move on to our next story. We're gonna jump into this. Nancy Mace claims that she was assaulted at the Capitol by a pro-trans man, which is such an interesting way to label anyone who isn't transphobic. No, transphobia is the issue, not being pro, but whatever. Eyewitnesses tell a slightly different story. So she tweeted, "I was physically accosted tonight on Capitol grounds over my fight to protect women." That's what she labels it. Others disagree. Capitol Police have arrested him. "All the violence and threats keep proving our point. Women deserve to be safe. Your threats will not stop my fight for women. Hashtag hold the line." So there, in one fell swoop, she's describing what she thinks happened to her, and also she's keeping up her frenetic pace of never letting 5 seconds go by without tweeting about trans people. In any event, the US Capitol Police largely agree with her, probably because they got the story from her, saying the victim, Mace, offered their right hand to the individual to shake hands. The victim stated that the subject began to aggressively and in an exaggerated manner shake her arm up and down in a handshaking motion. The effect of the motion was described as her arm flailing for about 3 to 5 seconds. So I'm getting slight Michael Tracy, Maxine Waters vibes here. But anyway, the man arrested was James McIntyre, a foster care advocate. This was an event for the Foster Youth Caucus. And so McIntyre apparently shook Mace's hand, saying that transgender youth in foster care need her support, which they would have gotten a few years ago, back when she was perfectly fine towards trans people. But now her bread is buttered by never stop attacking them every day. I mean, I'm getting on Fox News now. I got to keep it up. So anyway, the account from Hinkle is that from what I saw, it was a normal handshake and interaction that I would expect any legislator to expect from anyone as a constituent. Okay, 2 other witnesses corroborated his description of events. So there's 2 different stories. Either her arm was jostled up and down so bad that it actually justifies what you'll see in this photo, which is that she needed an arm brace from it, or the most try-hard, pick-me congressperson in the world, never stopping trying to make themselves the center of every news cycle and get in the news and be focused and put the camera up on my face and talk about what I'm saying and all that, could be exaggerating. I'm not saying that she's exaggerating, just because she has already earlier today threatened to sue anyone who points out that she's a massive liar who can't be trusted. So I'm not saying that because I don't want to be sued, but I'm just saying that's what people are speculating. Francesca, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, I just cannot get over that we're living in a time where mothers are being denied, pregnant people and people and women who are pregnant are being denied care at hospitals to the point where they are losing their lives, to say nothing of the fetus, because of anti-abortion laws. We're at a time when South Carolina is considering abortion to be homicide, which would necessitate the death penalty, possibly in a state like South Carolina that has a death penalty for homicide for women who have abortions. And yet transphobes like Nancy Mace are saying we're protecting women because we're preventing trans people from using bathrooms. It's just like the dissonance is so loud and clear. And I just feel like, let's remember, for every time that they talk about trans people, what they are not talking about is how, and using women supposedly as a shield, they're not talking about how women are dying. And they are pulling the wool over our eyes, to say nothing of what they are doing to trans people in this country. But additionally, I mean, this is why, I mean, I hope to see in the next 4 years, feminist organizations, abortion rights organizations that are working with women to get their rights back, to fight for their rights, aligning themselves with trans organizations. And I think they already are, they already have. And because our fight is one and the same, our healthcare needs are one and the same. I mean, it's funny to say this, but like, who else gets impacted by not getting hormones? Menopausal women. like you better not take away some hormones. Like, my mom's been on hormones for like 40 years, you know what I'm saying? Like, if I don't wanna know what happens to my mom. She's a very sweet woman, but who knows when she loses those hormones. But for real, this is about all of our healthcare, and women literally are dying, but it's not from a trans person using their bathroom.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that you'd care about if you actually cared about women. But if you're just using it to get on the news, like Nancy Mace, then you'd focus on other stuff. By the way, as someone pointed out in the chat, however devastating her arm injury is, she sure seems able to type out her Twitter messages perfectly fine. We talked recently on the show about how anonymous reports indicate that many Black Republicans feel like they're being snubbed by the incoming Trump administration, which, to be clear, no one could have seen coming. There was no warning, no signs. Well, it turns out they're not the only ones that are feeling snubbed. Republican women are apparently being snubbed by MAGA and by their own party, because for the first time since the 114th Republican-led Congress, it appears there will not be a single woman leading a House committee. There are two right now, but they're both going to be leaving. So Representative Kathy McMorris Rodgers is retiring from Congress. Representative Virginia Fox, one of the most truly reprehensible individuals in public service, is term limited. Maybe they'll change that so she can stay on and continue to annoy us. But as it stands right now, that's going to be it. The sole woman running for a competitive gavel, that's Representative Ann Wagner, lost the Foreign Affairs chairmanship to Representative Brian Mast, who has the unique qualification of being a man. And because of that, there's basically nobody left that could be chosen by the steering committee to take over. And I need you to hear what some of these Republican women are saying about it. They're expressing their justifiable concern in maybe the most ridiculous way possible. So Nicole Maliatakis says, it's unfortunate. We've never been a party that was about checking boxes or identity politics, but the difference is we have women that are qualified to be chairs. And I don't know why there wasn't one who was able to become a chairperson or a committee. So we don't just care about diversity. Let's be clear, diversity is terrible. Blah. But the difference here is that we have people who are qualified, because in every other case where people talked about wanting more diversity, nobody was qualified. There's never been a qualified woman for one of these positions, a qualified person of color for one of these positions. They were all being chosen even though they were garbage. But in our case, we're actually qualified. And I want to read one more. Representative Harry Hagman says, I don't think people make decisions based upon a sexist outlook. Really? You don't think your party? No? Okay. Earlier this year, she called Kamala Harris a DEI hire. Now she's saying, I think that we all have talents and skills, and we're put in positions based upon seniority and that sort of thing. And yet it doesn't seem to matter. They're not choosing you. It's almost as if they don't respect you. What do you think, Francesca?
Ha, ha. And you know that I'm very invested in Republican women whispering, you need to abandon your party. You need to start a new party. Hey, take over the Democratic Party. We're not really using it. They'll go, I mean, you already tried with Liz Cheney. We'll start something else. I mean, truly though, but this is just amazing, because let's understand that DEI programs, that affirmative action, have disproportionately helped out, say it with me, white women, women in corporate jobs, white women in politics, white women everywhere. So the next time when you are about to say DEI or woke or affirmative action, just look in the mirror, man. Who are you? How are you where you are? I mean, it is amazing. And yet the last place that women are allowed to sort of be in the Republican world is on television, screeching about DEI, screeching about this, while off camera, they're being sexually assaulted and preyed upon, and the air out of their tires is being taken out by some weirdo named Jesse Waters. Like, this is the ultimate irony.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's sad. But you know what? Sit in it, man, because that's your party.
Yeah, again, look, for any of these representatives who are still shocked and feel betrayed, just Google leopard eating face party. I mean, this has all been mapped out a long time ago. They've been very clear that they don't respect you. You've made the decision that you value, your aspirations more than, respect and basic decency or whatever. I don't know why you're so surprised by this turn of events. Okay, that's unfortunately all the time we have for the first hour of the show. There's a lot more to come in the aftermath, though, so everyone buckle up. We'll see you in a few. Welcome back, one and all, to the Aftermath. I'm here, Francesca's here, everybody's here. We're gonna jump into some news, but first, a couple comments. Shroud Mentality, member for 16 months, says, Nance, this is an awkward way to tell the public you suffer from noodle arms. See, that's funny. I wouldn't have previously read that or laughed at it, but Trump winning teaches me that we need to stop taking everything so personally and be so sensitive, Nancy Mace. You wouldn't have a problem with that. A person exercising their free speech, okay? Anyway, Nitwit Dragon, member for 40 months, says, got the cancer free today. Thank you, Canada Healthcare, for helping me beat breast cancer and not putting me in debt. Universal healthcare is possible. Sure, it's possible for dozens of other countries, but clearly there's something so flawed about our society that we uniquely could never make it work, I guess. That's what the richest people in our country want me to believe anyway. Okay, and then finally, Dragon C. Morris says, and I think this is a sarcastic burn, John is our Joe Rogan. Well, I do like the WWE, which is kind of like UFC. Yeah. I have short hair and I'm willing to cut it shorter. I believe in dragons, so there is some overlap there. Maybe I am our Joe Rogan after all.
You need to really sell a supplement, John.
I mean, do need to sell a supplement. What should it be?
Well, it's just like it's like a chewed up Pop-Tart, but like, or it's like a Pop-Tart in a pill. It's like you get the same flavor.
That's good. It's a pill that provides like 6 Pop-Tarts worth of brown sugar and cinnamon.
Yes.
Okay, which is obviously good for mental focus and also stuff down south. Am I right, guys? $100 a pill. Also available as an NFT. So you got that going for you.
Wait, anyway, before we jump in, I have one announcement to make, which is I'm going to be live in Pasadena at the Ice House on Wednesday, January 22nd for a show I'm calling The New World Disorder. And it's gonna be a politically themed comedy show. I'm doing stand-up, but also Ida Rodriguez, my husband, Matt Lieb, comedian James Fritz, and comedian Chloe Hilliard, who've all been on my show, The Bitchuation Room. So get tickets. Tickets, you can get them francescafiorentini.com. You can go to the Ice House's website. Again, Wednesday, Jan 22nd, 7:30 p.m. Don't miss it.
That's awesome. We actually plugged that show earlier this week when Ida was on. And I told her, I don't know for sure that I'll be able to, but I would really like to go.
Please.
I think that would be a lot of fun. Okay, well, with that said, why don't we jump into some more news? Republicans are continuing to prove that they don't give a damn about the will of the voters, even when those voters might be Republicans, briefly disagreeing with them. And we have a couple of different examples of that. Specifically in North Carolina, we have them trying and failing to disqualify 60,000 ballots, where if they had done that, they'd be able to win a very narrow race, a race that they're currently losing in. Thankfully, they've been stopped by the state Supreme Court. This is for a position on the state Supreme Court. By the way, the Republicans have a 5-2 majority. If the Democrat does win, and currently they're leading by less than 800 votes, the Republicans will still have the majority, but this is how viciously they will fight and disenfranchise voters to have an even bigger majority. In this case, they have failed, but unfortunately they did succeed in one of their other ways to flip the double bird to the voters. See, North Carolina voted for a Democrat to become the governor. Okay, they made very clear, we want a Democrat in charge. And so the Republicans in the legislature are like, shut up about it, we don't care what you want. So they have overturned a veto that would have stopped them from passing a law to strip power from not only the incoming Democratic governor, but also other Democrats. And so Republicans are set to lose their veto-proof supermajority come 2025. In advance of that, they've done their final vote on a bill that takes away power from incoming Democrats on a party line 72-46 votes. See, when they're in charge, they do whatever they want. When they're kicked out, they do whatever they want and make it as difficult as possible for the Democrats that the people sent to power to get anything done. And so the bill is like mostly a Hurricane Helene relief fund, but they've packed in a whole bunch of ways to limit the power of a variety of different Democratic office holders. We've previously reported on this. The Democrats tried to block it, but they've now done it. It's happened in other states before. The Republicans will never accept a vote that doesn't go their way, and this is one of the ways they fight back against it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember which state, but this is a playbook where it's like, oh, they lose their supermajority or they lose the governorship. they're just going to change the rules. They can't stand for Democrats to play by the same rules that they play by, which are not always fair, but you know what I'm saying. And so they freak out about it. And they do this also when it comes to, any kind of propositions that they don't like. The state legislatures, if they're Republican led, will straight up ignore propositions if passed, or in the case of Florida, create a higher threshold to actually pass said proposition, as was the case this last, November, when Florida voted to, yes, enshrine and protect abortion rights. And oh, no, they didn't. They're 57%, had to be 60%. They created their own statewide filibuster. They change the rules when they're not winning by the already broken rules that usually extend and lend in their favor. Like, it's just wild. And this is, again, we're in this moment off the backs of some, horrible vigilante violence, right? But you start to look at the ways our system is not only broken, but it is then rewritten when it's broken, and it doesn't go the way of the Republicans and the way of minority rule. And you're like, well, how are people actually? We're being told you're supposed to vote. Okay, give North Carolina a chance, all right? They vote for a Democratic governor. But then you're gonna make that Democratic governor completely toothless and unable to pass any meaningful legislation. It's like, what do you expect people to do? The only answer is to organize. The only answer is to rise up.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I constantly say, when you hear people like Donald Trump being like, we're gonna send it back to the people. Well, unless the people vote against us, in which case we're gonna raise the threshold for them to be able to override the will of the people. And then even if that happens, we're gonna undo it with legislation later on. They don't give a damn about the will of the people. And to you Republicans out there, I know that in general, you don't think you should care about this, because after all, what they're doing is being vicious in your defense or for what you want. Sure, in general, so long as you believe that you're never gonna disagree with them. You're gonna agree with them on literally everything, because I got news for you. If and when you do ever disagree with them, perhaps on reform to health insurance, a lot of you do apparently disagree with the right on that. They don't give a damn about what you think. Okay, you love them being vicious when you think it's in pursuit of your interests. I think you're generally wrong about this. I don't think they give a damn about you. But if you ever come out and openly disagree with them, they will destroy you, okay? And I hope that it doesn't come to that. I hope you don't have to experience that, but it is potentially in the future. Okay, I'm not sure that we're gonna get to all of these stories. I'm thinking, do we leave Zuckerberg until last? What do you think? Is that what you're least interested in? What are you interested in, Francesca?
You
don't think we
decide.
get to everything. Okay, well, here's what I'm gonna do. For right now, let's move G to last. Is that okay, control room? No, you like Zuckerberg. You want Zuckerberg. Okay, I apologize for even bringing this up. We're gonna continue. I'm gonna give the control room a minute by reading a comment, and then we're gonna continue with the rundown as currently listed. Pitchfork's Dragon, member for 40 months, says, fun fact, bears and raccoons keep ripping apart Cybertrucks because they think they're dumpsters. I don't know that that is true, but if that is true, that is very, very funny. Okay, let's see. Okay, I don't want to go into a whole long thing about this, but Cosmere Dragon says in a super chat, John, I know you won't read this live. Well, I will. But the issue many take with Cenk and Anna is that they refuse to have these conversations with many important leftist figures or address criticism in good faith. Look, I will say what I think they think is that they think that there is good faith criticism, and some of it they think of it as not good faith criticism. And I think there have been ongoing feuds now for a long time that if you put yourself in the position of anybody involved on either side of this, it can be very hard to see the other side as operating in good faith when you've been fighting for a long time. I'm not in these feuds. I can only say that as an outsider, it's very difficult when you like both sides of a conflict. As I said earlier, I think we should talk more. I think that would be helpful and productive, not just for these individuals, but much more importantly, for the movement and for progress.
I mean,
but obviously there's some human reasons it's difficult. I want to facilitate more of these conversations. I literally do.
I've proposed debates to Cenk with us, between you, me, him, and Anna, and he didn't take me up on that. So I'm just like being honest, like 100%. Like, this is what I've suggested. I think it was about a year ago, specifically on trans issues. And so if and when I'm ever on the main show and the trans issue comes up, like, we will only talk about it then. But like, let's be real, like, there aren't many opportunities to actually listen to what I believe Cenk thinks are good faith voices. And I usually personally, I don't get them. I don't think you get too many of them either. I'm just being honest, like I don't know who's good faith anymore. I mean, honestly, tomorrow I could be seen as bad faith. Just even saying the thing I'm saying, I might be bad faith. I don't know. Like it really is actually upsetting and it's scary because I've tracked some of the people who they think are bad faith and do not read the same at all. I don't get that at all. And so as someone who's also tried to hold my tongue, as someone who's also scared for my job, like, you know what I'm saying? I don't know what to do anymore. Like you don't know what to do anymore, except for be honest.
Again,
and so
and that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to have empathy for people who, you know, again, when you are in an ongoing fight, it is difficult to see other people as operating in good faith. And also, I don't think naive. I don't think literally everybody is operating in good faith. I don't think that literally everybody doesn't have some sort of motivation. I do think, again, I was not familiar with any of that debate stuff that you were talking about, but we have vigorous disagreements on the main show. We likely will tomorrow. So anyway, again, we'll talk more over time. We have stuff that we have to get to, but I hear what you're saying. Okay, for now, let's talk about a disagreement we perhaps have with an incredibly wealthy and powerful person. Let's jump into this. Head of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, apparently has donated $1 million to Donald Trump's inauguration fund, which I can't be clear enough. He doesn't have to do that. That is a totally voluntary thing that he is doing to massively financially suck up to the incoming president. When it's not the first forum that he's sucking up to the president. He previously put out a fawning statement about how badass Donald Trump was that he apparently ever got up at all from being shot at. So he was super impressed with him, and now he's dining with him at Mar-a-Lago, and he's doing all the stuff that all these tech people are doing to suck up to Donald Trump. But then going above and beyond and being like, no, I'm just gonna literally give you a bunch of money that you don't need. You could pay for your entire inauguration yourself. You could pay for all this stuff, but no, I'm gonna give you my money because that's how I think I can buy some influence with you. Or maybe it's not that. Maybe it's not just that. Maybe he's worried about being sent to prison because after all, Donald Trump had threatened to put him in jail for the rest of his life because he interfered with the election. So maybe he's worried about rotting in a cell. I don't know. Maybe he's worried about the FTC chair, Andrew Ferguson, who had previously tweeted, at the FTC, we will end big tech's vendetta against competition and free speech. And so, you know, like they did something, I guess, once on Facebook that bothered Trump. I don't know what it is because for literally years, they've been advantaging Trump and the right in their algorithms. So I don't know what has got them so worked up, but regardless, whichever it is, Zuckerberg is doing everything he can to suck up to Donald Trump. And it's not just him. Bezos is doing the same thing. The owner of the LA Times is doing the same thing, Francesca. And so it just feels like more and more people that, I'm not saying they're ever gonna like support us or whatever, our side, but maybe they could be neutral. No, neutrality is done. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think this is the biggest flaw in the argument that somehow the right-wing populists are going to wake up. No, because do you have $1 million you're gonna drop in Trump's inaugural fund? And if you don't, you can F right off. And that's really how the MAGA movement, and specifically Donald Trump, feels. And this is the other reason. None of these people are serious about breaking up big tech. None of them have ever been serious about real free speech. Talk to Palestine protesters. Talk to Elon Musk, who's turned X into just a massive MAGA platform. It's so deeply unserious. I don't even know how people, especially on the left, can even be there anymore. And here you go once again, Zuckerberg, he freaked out, obviously, like we all did after Jan 6 and after 2016, when he was like, rampant amount of misinformation that my platform spread, that I made billions of dollars off of, that I allowed people's data to be hacked or accessed through third-party apps, that then was psychographed and then funneled back into the Trump campaign, lest we forget all that happened. Oops, guess this wasn't a great move. Guess I've been throwing down with authoritarians, not abroad, because I'm super cool with that, but here in the United States. And then just a short 8 years later, oops, okay, I'm gonna hedge my bets because you know what? The class war seems to be coming. These workers are mad. These people are mad that I'm censoring all of their speech on my platforms, that I'm not, but I own them and I own all of their data. And so you know what?
Yeah.
I will always throw down with fascism. Then I don't know. What did he care about? Immigration reform? No. They will throw down, money will throw down with fascism. And unless you got money, you're out of luck.
Yeah, I'm glad you focused on the immigration there, because going from like being like, I'm gonna bring people together to solve this problem, to like, Stephen Miller, what can I do for you, sir? Here's some goggles with AI. Would you like to try them on? Aren't they cool? Oh my God, it's so pathetic. And by the way, I can also understand, yeah, he's probably afraid of the company being destroyed by Trump because he's that vindictive, or being thrown in jail because Trump is that vindictive and authoritarian. But like, you're also a billionaire. You could probably fight it. You could be a leader. Like, just bowing down to these petty, pathetic, faux strongmen. That's how you want to be remembered?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, we have time for one more story. Which should we do?
Pardons for sure.
Pardons, is that okay, Control Room? I apologize. I've been causing a lot of chaos. I don't like to cause problems if that's not clear. I want everything to work. So sorry to the TD. But let's jump into our pardons. Following bipartisan criticism of his pardoning of his son Hunter, Joe Biden has now stepped it up and provided pardons to people he's not related to, and actually quite a few of them. He's kind of making history here. He commuted the sentences of nearly 1,500 people who were released from prison and placed on home confinement during the coronavirus pandemic, and is pardoning 39 Americans convicted of nonviolent crimes. It's the largest single-day act of clemency in modern history. Previously, that had been held by Barack Obama with 330. Now, of course, Biden still has time. He says he's not done. We don't know exactly who is receiving the clemency or the pardons, but we do know sort of some of the categories. Those pardoned apparently have been convicted of nonviolent crimes such as drug offenses and turned their lives around. They include a woman who led emergency response teams during natural disasters, a church deacon who has worked as an addiction counselor and youth counselor, a doctoral student in molecular biosciences, and a decorated military veteran. Prior to this, he'd issued 122 commutations and 21 other pardons. So this is a big ramping up. I think all of those sound great. I also think you should not have had to have gotten an awesome or cool or helpful job. Like, if you never should have been locked up in the first place, you should get the pardon regardless, but that's just me. Activists are calling for more pardons, in particular for environmentalist and human rights lawyer Stephen Donziger, who's previously appeared on the show. Others are advocating for him to commute the sentences of all of the current federal death row prisoners, which I would love to see, because otherwise Donald Trump is going to kill as many of them as he can.
Yes.
I also don't expect Joe Biden to do that, Francesca. What do you make of all this?
No, it's not like they're getting out. You don't either. You commute their sentence, right? Or you lessen it to life, right? So I think this is huge. I think it's massive. It matters who it is, that these are largely nonviolent offenders, that these are people who have low-level drug crimes or just drug crimes, right? And compare that to who Donald Trump pardoned, right? The white collar criminals, all of his friends of friends, famous rappers, wealthy people. That's who he pardoned. And war criminals, the people involved in the Blackwater Nicer Square massacre in Iraq that we know about thanks to Chelsea Manning and WikiLeaks. That's who Donald Trump pardoned. So tomato, tomato here. I don't give a rat's behind about Hunter Biden. I think he should pardon Donziger. I think he should pardon Native American activist Leonard Peltier, who is still in prison, wrongly convicted of killing an FBI agent. Completely trumped up charges. He is sick. He is not well, and he has served, I think, well over 40, 50 years now. I mean, I don't know how long it's been. So he has more to do. Let's add Edward Snowden, okay? I know Obama felt really fingered and very mad that, Edward Snowden was like, hey, guess what? The NSA is spying on all of us and using our data and listening in on our phone calls and like watching us on our cameras. But you know what? I'm glad we know that. So pardon Edward Snowden. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I would.
Yeah. I agree with basically everything you said there, except for the use of fingered. I think we could have done without that. But other than that, I agree with the substance. Anyway, yeah, we'll see. he got, look, hey, we gave you Hunter. You got Hunter. You might pardon preemptively Hillary Clinton or whatever. Apparently Bill's down for that. But yeah, maybe some other people too who aren't like related to powerful politicians. Okay, that is unfortunately all the time we have for the show. Francesca, pleasure having you on. Thank you as always.
Everyone sub to the Bitchuation Room on YouTube.
Do that as well. Okay, and the show is coming up at the Ice House. That's on the 20th, right?
22nd, Wednesday the 22nd.
22nd. Okay, I think I had said the 20th. Okay, we'll just make sure. 22nd, good. Hope to see you there. Thank you, everyone. We're gonna be doing members content in just a sec. We're gonna be talking about Francesca's op-ed. Brett's gonna be on the show tomorrow. Thank you, everyone, for your support. Until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. We'll see you soon.